Hello gardener, have you ever experienced the soothing aroma and calming effects of chamomile tea? Well, today I'm going to show you every step to growing your own chamomile from seed so you can harvest fresh flowers to make tea. Fresh chamomile tea is amazing. The flavor is so fruity and it has an intense apple-like aroma you just can't get from the dried bags. Once you grow your own and taste the difference, you'll never go back to the grocery store stuff again. If you're new here, hello and welcome. My name is Jara and I teach others how to garden and grow food. This is one of many garden guides that can be found on my channel where I share my knowledge about growing food and other edible plants. So make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my tutorials. First, you need some seeds. There are basically two types of chamomile, German chamomile and Roman chamomile. They both are a little different, so let me explain. German chamomile typically grows taller, reaching up to 2 to 3 feet in height, while Roman chamomile grows up to 6 to 12 inches tall and forms a low growing mat type of foliage, making it a great choice as a ground cover or to fill spaces between garden paths and pavers. German chamomile is an annual plant, meaning it completes its life cycle within one growing season and it self-seeds readily, like all over the garden. Roman chamomile is a perennial plant living for more than 2 years. German chamomile has a slightly stronger, more robust aroma with hints of apple and has more flavor. If I walk out here after it rains, it smells heavenly. You really notice the apple aroma. Roman chamomile has a milder, sweeter aroma and flavor, often described as fruity and floral. A lot of people prize chamomile for its relaxing and anti-inflammatory medicinal properties. German chamomile contains more of these compounds when compared to Roman chamomile. Since German chamomile is almost always more beneficial than Roman chamomile, it's the kind that I grow right here in my garden, and I have seeds on my website if you need some. Okay, now that you have your seeds picked out, let's discuss when to sow the seeds, because timing is super important. General guidelines say to direct sow seeds after your last spring frost date, or sow seeds indoors if you want to go that route, 4 to 6 weeks before your last spring frost date. Then transplant them outside once all danger of frost has passed. This works great for those of you with more mild temperate climates, but not for those of you in hot climates like me here in Florida. If you have extremely hot summers with mild winters, pretty much you South USA Garden Zone 8 and up gardeners, the summer heat will kill both German and Roman chamomile. Trust me, I've grown both and they like evaporate overnight when the heat of summer arrives, which is usually by June. Chamomile is actually considered a cool season crop, so it makes a lot of sense why it does not like the heat. So the game plan for us is to grow chamomile starting in the fall, so it grows through winter and spring. Then it dies in summer. That's just how it is. Direct sow seeds at the end of September when the cooler temperatures of fall arrive, or if you're sowing seeds indoors, sow seeds in August to transplant at the end of September. Chamomile is very cold hardy. It can survive frost but might die in freezing temperatures. You can grow it in a pot and bring it indoors if you're expecting very cold weather. Now that we have our target dates for starting the seeds, let me show you how to sow them. The number one most important thing you need to know about chamomile is that the seeds require light to germinate. I can't tell you how many gardeners have contacted me saying they can't get chamomile seeds to germinate, and it's because they covered the seeds with soil and they didn't have access to light. The easiest way is to direct sow seeds in a spot that is in full sun. Make sure it's clear of weeds and debris so they don't block the seeds. Sprinkle the seeds over the area, pat them down, don't cover with soil, and gently water them in. Keep the area moist and they should germinate in about 7 to 10 days. In general, chamomile doesn't like having its roots disturbed like when transplanting, so direct sowing the seeds is the best option. Now let's say you want to get an early start on your chamomile season, or you're struggling to get them to germinate outside. You can sow seeds in pots or containers. I like to use 72 cell seed trays so I can sow a lot of it at once. I fill these cells with some sterile seed starting mix. You can buy some at the store or make your own with this recipe right here. And then pre-moisten this before sowing the seeds. It just makes it easier. Next, we're going to sprinkle the seeds over the soil surface, pat them down so they make contact with the soil and don't like fly out or wash away. Do not cover them with soil. Gently water this in with like a misting spray setting on your hose nozzle so it doesn't push soil up over the seeds. Then you're going to take your entire pots, trays, what have you, put this under some bright lights, use 5,000 Kelvin or higher shop lights, or even better, grow lights. I'm using Mars Hydro 3x3 grow lights that I get from Amazon. I'll link it below in the description. I have seen such a huge improvement over how fast my seedlings grow by using these grow lights. Let's discuss the perfect spot to grow chamomile in the garden. This applies whether you direct sow the seeds or plant a transplant. Chamomile likes full sun, but in areas with extreme heat, it's best to plant them in a spot that gets a lot of bright morning sun with some afternoon shade. Anything grows great in soil rich in organic matter, but chamomile is a wildflower, so it doesn't need the best of soils to thrive. It does need soil that has good drainage though, because it is very susceptible to root rot. Chamomile requires a consistent amount of water. It easily crisps up and turns brown and dies off if it doesn't get enough water, especially when it's hot outside. outside. And just some care tips so you grow nice, big, healthy chamomile plants. Do not fertilize chamomile, as this will encourage lots of leafy growth instead of flowers. Chamomile in general doesn't have too many pest issues. The most common pest is aphids because these leaves are pretty succulent. A small amount of aphids is no big deal, and I actually leave them alone because they are a good food source for ladybugs and other beneficial insects. But if you notice the new growth is wilting, or there are so many aphids on the flower stems that they start to go limp, then you should treat for it. It is a little tricky though, because you don't want to get sprays on the flowers since that's the part that we will consume. First, harvest any flowers for the day, then try and blast off as many aphids as you can off your plants with just a very hard spray from the water hose. Then take a small hand pump sprayer and apply insecticidal soap to the stems beneath the flowers only. Or just plant a lot of chamomile plants so you still get a decent crop even if aphids take out some of the plants. You kind of need a lot of chamomile plants anyways if you want to harvest enough flowers to make a lot of tea, or maybe you want to grow enough to dry a year's worth of flowers. Chamomile also doesn't have too many disease issues, but in humid or wet conditions, they can get leaf spot, powdery mildew, or anthracnose. Spray with 1 cup of hydrogen peroxide per gallon of water on the stems and leaves below the flowers to clean and disinfect. By following all of these tips, your plants should be lush and produce a lot of blooms. Let me show you how to harvest and dry the flowers to make tea. I harvest flowers every morning after the dew has dried, so that way the flowers have opened up all of the way. The petals should be broad and flat like these ones. This is the ideal stage to pick the flowers. I just pinch right underneath the flower. Try not to get any of the stem attached to the flower because the stems can actually partake a bitter flavor to your tea. Frequent harvesting encourages the plants to produce even more flowers, so make sure you go out there every day. If you let them go to seed, they will think their life cycle is over and stop producing more blooms. You should be able to harvest over the course of a few weeks or maybe even a few months. You can make chamomile tea with fresh flowers. Just add 3 to 4 tablespoons and steep for 5 minutes with 8 ounces of hot water. Drain the flowers out and it's ready to drink. Or dry the flowers so they can be stored over a long period of time. I put this on my kitchen countertop and I just let them dry out naturally. I don't like to put them like in a dehydrator or anything like that that exposes them to heat, because the heat can break down the medicinal properties of the chamomile. In about 1 to 2 weeks, they should be dried, and when they're dried, they're a little bit more potent. If using dried flowers, you only need 1 tablespoon of dried flowers per 8 ounces of hot water. I like to make chamomile tea because of its soothing anti-inflammatory properties. It can be used in a plethora of bath products, skincare products, soap, salves, potpourri, tinctures, and the list goes on. It's a very useful plant. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever grown chamomile from seed? I would appreciate it if you shared your experience, tips, and favorite chamomile recipes in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more gardening tips and inspiration. Happy gardening, and I'll see you in the next video.